From the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, this is Democracy Now!
It just validated everything we thought, everything we believed to be true, that this was completely rigged right from the beginning, and that, it was really about, they were doing everything to set it up so she would win.
As the Democratic National Convention opens here in Philadelphia, as Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigns as party leader following the release of leaked emails revealing how the Democratic National Committee worked behind the scenes to discredit and defeat Bernie Sanders. In an exclusive broadcast interview, we speak with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who posted the 20,000 internal DNC emails online. Then we look at Hillary Clinton's newly named running mate.
I have to say that Senator Tim Kaine is everything Donald Trump and Mike Pence are not. He is qualified to step into this job and lead on day one. And he is a progressive who likes to get things done. That's just my kind of guy, Tim.
We'll host a debate between Jess McIntosh with the Clinton campaign and Norman Salmon, co-founder of the Bernie Delegates Network. He's a California delegate. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. Breaking with Convention, War, Peace, and the Presidency. I'm Amy Goodman. The Democratic National Convention's opening today here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, amidst massive party turmoil. DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz says she's stepping down following the release of nearly 20,000 emails revealing how the Democratic Party favored Hillary Clinton and worked behind the scenes to discredit and defeat Bernie Sanders. The emails were released Friday by WikiLeaks. In one email, DNC Chief Financial Officer Brad Marshall suggested someone asked Sanders about his religion, writing, quote, "For Kentucky and West Virginia, can we get someone to ask his belief? He had skated on saying he has a Jewish heritage. I think I read he's an atheist. My Southern Baptist peeps would draw a big difference between a Jew and an atheist," unquote. Another email shows DNC staffers suggesting planting a news story that Sanders' campaign was a mess. Bernie Sanders reacted to the emails during an interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos Sunday.
I told you long time ago that the DNC was not running a fair operation, that they were supporting Secretary Clinton. So what I suggested to be true 6 months ago turns out, in fact, to be true. I'm not shocked, but I am disappointed.
Democratic Party Vice Chair Donna Brazile will act as the DNC's interim head through the election in November. We'll have more on the emails after headlines with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Hillary Clinton has named Virginia Senator Tim Kaine to be a running mate. Kaine was elected to the Senate in 2012. Before that, he was the chair of the DNC. Clinton and Kaine spoke at an event in Miami Saturday, where Kaine spoke in both English and Spanish.
Hey, guys, thank you. Hello, Miami. Hello, FIU. Y bienvenidos a todos. Bienvenidos a todos en nuestro país, ¿verdad? Porque somos americanos todos.
That was Senator Kaine saying, "Welcome everyone in our country," right? Because we are all Americans. Those, again, the words of Tim Kaine speaking in Miami Saturday. Senator Kaine learned Spanish when he spent a year in Honduras with the Jesuit missionaries during the U.S.-backed Dirty War in 1980. Many believe Kaine's fluency will help him with the Latino vote, although a 2015 Univision poll found nearly 7 in 10 Latinos say a candidate's ability to speak Spanish would not affect their vote. Meanwhile, many progressives are concerned about Tim Kaine's track record of supporting so-called free trade agreements, including voting to fast-track the TPP. We'll have more on Tim Kaine later in the broadcast. A new CNN poll shows Donald Trump leading Hillary Clinton 44% to 39% in a four-way matchup. In the poll, Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson received 9%. Green Party candidate Dr. Jill Stein received 3%. This comes as Donald Trump has defended Roger Ailes, who's resigned from Fox News amidst multiple accusations of sexual harassment. This is Donald Trump speaking with MSNBC's Chuck Todd.
Well, I don't want to comment, but he's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I can tell you that some of the women that are complaining, I know how much he's helped them, and even recently, and when they write books that are fairly recently released, and they say wonderful things about him, and now all of a sudden they're saying these horrible things about him, it's very sad. Because he's a very good person. I've always found him to be just a very, very good person. And by the way, a very, very talented person. Look what he's done. So I feel very badly. But a lot of people think he's going to run my campaign. Yeah. My campaign's doing pretty well.
About a dozen women have spoken anonymously to the New York Times about experiencing sexual harassment at Fox News. One reporter said Roger Ailes began and ended every meeting by hugging and kissing her. Meanwhile, Trump also told Chuck Todd he expanded his call for a ban on immigration during his speech at the RNC on Thursday.
This feels like a slight rollback.
I don't think
Should we interpret it that as that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I actually don't think it's a rollback. In fact, you could say it's an expansion. I'm looking now at territories. People were so upset when I used the word Muslim. Oh, you can't use the word Muslim. Remember this. And I'm okay with that because I'm talking territory instead of Muslim. But just remember this. Our Constitution is great, but it doesn't necessarily give us the right to commit suicide, okay? Now, we have a religious, everybody wants to be protected, and that's great, and that's the wonderful part of our Constitution. I view it differently. Why are we committing suicide?
Former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard David Duke is running for U.S. Senate in Louisiana. Duke said he's, quote, overjoyed to see Donald Trump and most Americans embrace most of the issues I've championed for years, unquote. Earlier this year, Donald Trump refused to disavow David Duke's support, although Trump has since repeatedly disavowed him. Meanwhile, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who is on Donald Trump's vice presidential shortlist and who spoke at the Republican convention, has sparked controversy by retweeting an anti-Semitic message. On Sunday, he shared a tweet reading, quote, CNN implicated, the USSR is to blame, not anymore, Jews, not anymore, unquote. The tweet was a reference to Hillary Clinton's campaign manager claiming on CNN that Russia was behind the DNC email hack. Flynn deleted the tweet and apologized a few hours later. 2 people were killed and at least 16 wounded in a shooting early this morning at a nightclub in Fort Myers, Florida. Police said they were investigating the shooting and did not offer a potential motive or suspects for the attack. The attack at the Blue nightclub comes a little more than a month after a gunman attacked an LGBT nightclub in Orlando, killing 49 people in one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. Afghanistan observed a national day of mourning Sunday, a day after a suicide bomber killed at least 80 people demonstrating peacefully in Kabul. The Islamic State claimed the attack. The demonstrators were asking the Afghan government to build a high-power electrical transmission line in the impoverished northern province of Bamiyan. This is Jawad Rezai, the relative of one of the bombing victims.
Yesterday's incident was a tragic incident against the movement of justice. This is the first attack against a justice movement. We have lost many of our family and friends here. We have come here to bury our martyred and name the hill the Martyred Hill.
Memorials were held this weekend in Germany for victims of a mass shooting on Friday near a shopping center in Munich. German police said 18-year-old Ali Sanboy killed 9 people with a handgun in an apparently random attack before killing himself. An investigator said Sambale appeared to have been obsessed with mass shootings and began planning his attack after visiting the site of a school shooting that left 15 people dead in the German town of Winnedam. The shooting took place on the 5th anniversary of a mass shooting in Norway that left 77 people dead. Police said Sambale had pictures of that shooter, Anders Breivik, on his computer. Police also said Sambale had been hospitalized for 2 months last year for psychiatric care. Syrian government air raids over the weekend struck 5 medical facilities in and around the city of Aleppo. 5 people were killed in the strikes. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said all 5 clinics remain closed after the bombings. Physicians for Human Rights says 750 medical personnel have been killed in Syria since 2011, 698 in attacks carried out by Syrian government forces and their allies. Here in the United States, the family of a North Miami autistic man who police say was the target of a shooting last week says he's been traumatized by the incident. Arnaldo Rios Soto was being treated by a behavioral therapist, Charles Kinsey, after wandering away from a group home. When police arrived, Kinsey was lying on the ground with his hands in the air. He told police no one was armed and that Rios Soto was playing with a toy truck. An officer opened fire, shooting the behavioral therapist, Kinsey, in the leg. The police later said the officer meant to shoot the autistic man, Rios Soto, who was cradling his toy truck. Since the shooting, Rios Soto's family said he's not sleeping or eating. His sister Miriam Soto spoke to a local news organization.
Own up to your mistakes. Let people know that you're trying to change, because this is not the first time that it has happened. When I got home, I noticed my mom was crying, nervous. She had no answers, and she explains to me what she saw. Later on, that they realized that it was a toy. He didn't have a gun. Come on now. It's just too many lies.
And today would have been the 75th birthday of Emmett Till, 14-year-old African-American boy from Chicago who was murdered August 28, 1955, when visiting his aunt and uncle and cousins in Money, Mississippi. Emmett Till was abducted, beaten, and shot after he allegedly wolf-whistled at a white female store clerk named Carolyn Bryant. His corpse was found 3 days later in the Tallahatchie River with a bullet hole in his head, barbed wire wrapped around his neck, and a cotton gin fan weighing down his body. Emmett's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, held an open casket funeral for her son in Chicago, and the published images of his brutalized body galvanized the civil rights movement. This is Mamie Till speaking after the death of her son.
I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died.
That was Mamie Till. Her son, Emmett Till, if he had survived, would have been 75 years old today. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We are breaking with convention, war, peace, and the presidency. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. The Democratic National Convention is opening today in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, amid massive party turmoil. Democratic National Committee Chairwoman and Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz has resigned following the release of nearly 20,000 emails revealing how the Democratic Party favored Hillary Clinton and worked behind the scenes to discredit and defeat Bernie Sanders. The emails were released Friday by WikiLeaks. In one email, DNC Chief Financial Officer Brad Marshall suggested someone ask Sanders about his religion ahead of the Kentucky and West Virginia contests. Marshall wrote, quote, "It might make no difference, but for Kentucky and West Virginia, can we get someone to ask his belief? Does he believe in a God? He had skated on saying he has a Jewish heritage. I think I read he is an atheist. This could make several points difference with my peeps, my Southern Baptist peeps, would draw a big difference between a Jew and an atheist," unquote. In another email, Debbie Wasserman Schultz calls Sanders' campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, a, quote, "damn liar."
A third email shows National Press Secretary Mark Pastenbach writing, quote, wondering if there's a good Bernie narrative for a story, which is that Bernie never, ever had his act together, that his campaign was a mess, unquote. Multiple emails show the DNC complaining about MSNBC coverage of the party and of communications director Luis Miranda once writing, quote, effing Joe, claiming the system is rigged, party against him, we need to complain to their producer, unquote, referring to Joe Scarborough. Other emails suggest the DNC was gathering information on Sanders' events and that a super PAC was paying people to counter Sanders supporters online. On Sunday, Bernie Sanders reacted to the emails during an interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos.
I told you long time ago that the DNC was not running a fair operation, that they were supporting Secretary Clinton. So what I suggested to be true 6 months ago turns out, in fact, to be true. I'm not shocked, but I am disappointed. What I also said many months ago is that for a variety of reasons, Debbie Wasserman Schultz should not be chair of the DNC. And I think these emails reiterate that reason why she should not be chair. I think she should resign, period. And I think we need a new chair who is going to lead us in a very different direction.
WikiLeaks has not revealed the source of the leaked emails, although in June, a hacker using the name Guccifer or Guccifer 2.0 claimed responsibility for the hacking into the DNC's computer network. On Sunday, however, Clinton's campaign manager claimed the emails were leaked, quote, by the Russians for the purpose of helping Donald Trump, unquote. We go now to London for an exclusive interview with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who's been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for more than 4 years. He was granted political asylum by Ecuador, but he fears if he attempts to go to Ecuador, if he attempts to step foot outside the Ecuadorian embassy, that he will be arrested by British police and ultimately extradited to the United States to face, well, it's believed possibly treason charges for the documents WikiLeaks has released. Julian Assange, editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, welcome to Democracy Now! Can you talk about this email, these 20,000 emails you have released?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable what has happened the last few days. I think this is quite a classical release showing the benefit of producing pristine data sets, presenting them before the public where there's equal access to all journalists and to interested members of the public to mine through them and have them in a citable form where they can then be used to prop up certain criticisms or political arguments. Often it's the case that we have to do a lot of exploration and marketing of the material we publish ourselves to get a big political impact for it. But in this case, we knew because of the pending DNC, because of the degree of interest in the US election, we didn't need to establish partnerships with the New York Times or the Washington Post. In fact, that might be counterproductive because they are partisans of one group or another. Rather, we took the data set, analyzed it, verified it, made it in a presentable, searchable form, presented it for all journalists and the public to mine. And that's exactly what has happened.
And Julian, your reaction to the announced resignation of Debbie Wasserman Schultz shortly after the release of these emails?
Well, I mean, that's interesting. We've seen that with a lot of other publications. I guess there's a question, what does that mean for the US Democratic Party? It is important for there to be examples of accountability. The resignation was an example of that. Now, of course, Hillary Clinton has tried to immediately produce a counterexample by putting out a statement within hours saying that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a great friend and she's incorporating her into her campaign. She's going to be pushing for her re-election to the Congress. So that's a very interesting signaling by Hillary Clinton that if you act in a corrupt way that benefits Hillary Clinton, you'll be taken care of. Why does she need to put that out? Certainly it's not a signal that helps for the public at all. It's not a signal that helps with unity at the DNC, at the convention. It's a signal to Hillary Clinton partisans to keep on going on, you'll be taken care of. But it's a very destructive signal for a future presidency, because it's expanding the Overton window of corruption. It doesn't really matter what you do, how you behave, as long as that is going to benefit Hillary Clinton, you'll be protected.
I mean, it's very interesting because Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine appeared together, as Mike Pence and Donald Trump did the week before on 60 Minutes. And Hillary Clinton distanced herself from all these emails in the DNC saying these people didn't work for me. And yet immediately upon the forced resignation of Deborah Wasserman Schultz, she said she's a good friend and immediately hired her. But Julian, I was wondering if you can say, from your point of view, what do you think are the most significant emails that have been released, that you have released?
Actually, I think the most significant ones haven't been reported on, although the Washington Post late last night and McClatchy at a first initial stab and added it. And this is the spreadsheets that we released covering the financial affairs of the DNC. Those are very rich documents. There's one spreadsheet called Spreadsheet of All Things, and it includes all the major all the major DNC donors, where the donations were brought in, who they are, identifiers, the total amounts they've donated, how much they donated at a particular event, whether that event was being pushed by the president or by someone else. That effectively maps out the influence structure in the United States for the Democratic Party, but more broadly, because with few exceptions, billionaires in the United States make sure they donate to both parties. So that's going to provide a scaffold for future investigative journalism about influence within the United States in general.
Julian, on that issue, clearly a lot of the emails talk about the actual amounts of money that were being offered to donors for the opportunity to, asked of donors for the opportunity to sit at different events next to President Obama, especially the use of President Obama as a fundraiser. Now, most people in the political world will consider this business as usual, but the actual mechanics of how this operates and the degree to which the DNC coordinates with the president, his marketability, I don't think has ever been revealed in this detail. Would you agree?
That's right. And it's not just that the president holds fundraisers. That's nothing new. But rather what you get for each donation of a particular sort. There's even a phrase used in one of the emails of, quote, pay to play. So, yeah, I think it's extremely interesting. There's emails back and forth also between the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. So you see quite elaborate structures of money being funneled to state Democratic Party offices and then teleported back. Seemingly to get up certain stats, maybe to evade certain campaign funding restrictions. In relation to what has become the most significant political discussion as a result of their publication, which is that the DNC higher-ups, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, were clearly against Bernie Sanders and trying to subvert his campaign in a whole raft of ways. That's true. That's the atmosphere that is revealed by hundreds of emails, is that it's perfectly acceptable to produce trenchant internal criticisms of Bernie Sanders and discuss ways to undermine his campaign. So whether that's calling up the president of MSNBC, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz called the president of MSNBC to haul Morning Joe into line, which it subsequently has done. I noticed this morning Morning Joe actually discussed it themselves, trying to shore up their own presentation of a TV program that can't be pushed around. But in fact, they did not mention the call to the president. That was something that was still unspeakable. And there was a 180-degree flip in that coverage. And you see other, quite naked conspiracies against Bernie Sanders. Why there's been some discussion, for example, about that there was a plan to expose Bernie Sanders as an atheist, as opposed to being a religious Jew, and to use that against him in the South to undermine his support there. There was an instruction by the head of communications, Louis Miranda, to take an anti-Bernie Sanders story that had appeared in the press and spread that around without attribution, not leaving their fingerprints on it. And that was an instruction made to staff. So it wasn't just a plan that may or may not have been carried out. This was an instruction that was pushed to DNC staff to covertly get out into the media anti-Bernie Sanders stories. Another thing that...
On Sunday, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Mook, cited experts saying that the DNC emails were leaked by the Russians in an attempt to help Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Mook was speaking to CNN. This is what he said.
What's disturbing to us is that experts are telling us that Russian state actors broke into the DNC, stole these emails, and other experts are now saying that the Russians are releasing these emails for the purpose of actually helping Donald Trump. I don't think it's coincidental that these emails were released on the eve of our convention here. We also saw last week at the Republican convention that Trump and his allies made changes to the Republican platform to make it more pro-Russian, and we saw him talking about how NATO shouldn't intervene to defend, necessarily should intervene to defend our Eastern European allies if they're attacked by Russia. So I think when you put all this together, it's a disturbing picture.
So that was Robbie Mook citing experts saying the DNC emails were leaked by the Russians. You were the one who released these 20,000 emails, Julian Assange. Where did you get them?
Well, what's not in that clip there by Robbie is that just afterwards he was asked by Jake Tapper, who are these experts, can you name them? The answer was no. There was a refusal to name the experts. But we have seen one of the experts, so-called experts, that the Democratic Party is trying to base this incredible conspiracy theory on about WikiLeaks. And that is this, what we jokingly refer to as the NSA dick pic guy. He's a former National Security Agency agent who started to produce conspiracy theories about us in 2013 when we were involved in the Edward Snowden rescue as a means to try and undermine the Snowden publications, subsequently embroiled in some amateur pornography scandal. That's why they don't want to name their experts, because they are people like this. In relation to sourcing, can say some things. We never reveal our sources, obviously. That's what we pride ourselves on, and we won't in this case either. But no one knows who our source is. It's simply speculation. It's, I think, interesting and acceptable to speculate who our sources are. But if we're talking about the DNC, there's lots of consultants that have access, lots of programmers, and the DNC has been hacked dozens and dozens of times, even according to its own reports. It had been hacked extensively over the last few years. And the dates of the emails that we publish are significantly after all but one, it's not clear, of the hacking allegations that the DNC says have occurred.
Julian, I want to mention something else. In March, you launched a searchable archive for over 30,000 emails and email attachments sent to and from Hillary Clinton's private email server while she was Secretary of State. The 50,547 pages of documents span the time from June 2010 to August 2014. 7,500 of the documents were sent by Hillary Clinton herself. The emails were made available in the form of thousands of PDFs by the U.S. State Department as a result of a Freedom of Information Act request. Why did you do this, and what's the importance, from your perspective, of being able to create a searchable base?
Well, WikiLeaks has become the rebel library of Alexandria. It is the single most significant collection of information that doesn't exist elsewhere in a searchable, accessible, citable form about how modern institutions actually behave. And it's gone on to set people free from prison, where documents have been used in their court cases, hold the CIA accountable for renditions programs, feed into election cycles, which result in the termination of, in some cases, or contributed to the termination of governments in some cases, taken the heads of intelligence agencies and ministers of defense and so on. So, you know, our civilization can only be as good as our knowledge of what our civilization is. We can't possibly hope to reform that which we do not understand. So those Hillary Clinton emails, they connect together with the cables that we have published of Hillary Clinton, creating a rich picture of how Hillary Clinton performs in office, but more broadly, how the US Department of State operates. So, for example, the disastrous, absolutely disastrous intervention in Libya, the destruction of the Gaddafi government, which led to the occupation of ISIS, of large segments of that country, weapons flows going over to Syria, being pushed by Hillary Clinton into jihadists within Syria, including ISIS. That's there in those emails. There's more than 1,700 emails in Hillary Clinton's collection that we've released just about Libya alone.
Finally, Julian, we cut you off earlier when you were talking about what you felt were the most significant emails that you have released. Is there any last one that you'd like to mention? And also, do you have any thoughts on Donald Trump? I mean, just before we went to air, a CNN poll came out that says Donald Trump is ahead by 5 percentage points of Hillary Clinton. Now, he did just come off of the Republican convention, but many called it the worst convention in history. So it's not automatic that he should have had this percentage lead. Of course, though, you have the crisis, the disarray the Democratic Party is in because of these emails that you've released.
Well, you're asking me, do I prefer cholera or gonorrhea? Personally, I would prefer neither. Look, I think, you know, we know how politics works in the United States. Whatever political party gets into government is going to merge with the bureaucracy pretty damn fast. It'll be in a position where it has some levers in its hand, and so as a result, the corporate lobbyists will move in to help to control those levers. So it doesn't make much difference in the end. What does make a difference is political accountability, a general deterrence set to stop political organizations behaving in a corrupt manner. That can make a difference because that changes the perception of what you can do or not do. So always, well, almost always, you should choose the principled position, which is to set a disciplinary signal about acting in a corrupt way, and take a philosophical position, which is our institutions can only be as good as our understanding of our institutions. Now,
we want to.
The other.
Yes, go ahead, Julian.
The other top emails. Well, as I said, I think this instruction by Louis Miranda, the head of communications, to go out and covertly spread anti-Bernie Sanders propaganda is a clear instruction combined with a chain of command. It's not simply expressing a sentiment. It is expressing an instruction within the DNC to subvert the Bernie Sanders campaign. Then there's a lot of emails about the close relationship between the DNC and the media. The Washington Post involved in a co-fundraising party, an off-list co-fundraising party for the DNC, calling up MSNBC during the middle of a program and saying, pull that segment now. Debbie Wasserman Schultz calling up the president of MSNBC in order to discipline Morning Joe, etc. That's, of course, something that we've all suspected happens, but this is concrete proof of it. But, I really encourage people to research the more than 8,000 attachments that we put out, separate files, including more than 175 spreadsheets. That has the real core, the financial core of the power structure and the exercise of monetary influence over the DNC. And that's something that's going to seed journalistic investigations for years.
Julian Assange, we want to thank you for being with us. Julian Assange, founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. This is Democracy Now! You can go online at democracynow.org to read the transcript or to hear again either the audio podcast or the video, see the video of this interview. We're broadcasting from the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia. It's the first day. It will be gavelled in just a couple of hours from this broadcast. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. When we come back, a debate. Stay with us. Our Generation by John Legend and the Roots. This is Democracy Now! Democracy Now!